Hi, Donald Dem here with Floating Feathers Kayak Fly Fishing School. The video you're about to see, it was a very hot day, so there was a few mistakes made. We had some camera issues, we had some recording issues where we thought it was recording, it ended up not recording. The cameras got hot, the batteries got hot. I was extremely hot, and as you're about to see in the video, sweating profusely. Because of this, we had to redo a couple of the steps a few times, and in that redo, I actually ran the anchor trolley line incorrectly. So as a caveat for the video you're about to watch, the biggest key part in the first part of this video is going to be making sure that you get the hardware in the locations where I tell you to get the hardware. Pay no attention to the actual anchor line because it is incorrect. However, towards the end of the video, the last section of the video will take you through how to run that anchor line when all of the hardware is installed. So again, I apologize. It took a little bit of editing. We thought we had some more video where we didn't. So we put the best video clips we could together. It's kind of a compilation, if you will. And if you have any questions, just post them below and I'll try to answer as best I can. All right. Enjoy the video and thank you for watching. Hi, Donald Dem here with Floating Feathers Kayak Fly Fishing School. Today we're going to go over how to install a lever lock anchor trolley from YakAttack. We will not be doing the HD install. This is just the regular YakAttack anchor trolley system, and we're going to do it on the Crescent Kayaks Lite Tackle. So this is a boat that I've already got the anchor trolley installed on, and we're going to look at it to see how it looks, and then we're going to install it on the Citron here. So if you follow me to the front here, the kit's going to come with a pulley, 2 stealth pulleys. One pulley is going to go on the front, and we're going to show you how to line this up. The next part of the kit's going to be a pad hook, and your anchor line runs through a slot in the top of the pad hook, and it just catches kind of like by an ear or a finger, if you will, in the bottom. This is the lever lock part of the lever lock anchor trolley. So to kind of show you how this works, so if you want to put an anchor down and you want to position that anchor so that your boat, like the wind's coming at you or away from you, and you want to position the boat so you can get the most advantageous fishing position, you're just going to position that anchor ring to wherever you need it on the boat, and I'm just going to say right here. And when I get it to position where I want it, I'm just going to use this lever and lock that position. So now that this rope will not move, your anchor is secure where it is at. It is not going to move at all. When you get ready to take up the anchor, you're going to simply flip your lever lock to the rear position, and now you can move it again. One of the great things that YakAttack does is that this little lever lock system here, this anchor ring has a nice little holder right there, and I just lock that. Kind of keeps it from flopping all around the boat. And then on the back end, you're going to have another pad hook, just like towards the front. We're going to show you how to line that up. And then on the very rear, you're going to have a rear stealth pulley as well. So we're going to come back up to the Citron boat, and we're going to show the kit. So the kit is the lever lock anchor trolley from YakAttack. Again, this is not the HD kit. I've had this particular kit on this boat for a very long time, since I've owned the boat. I think it's been almost 2 years now, I believe. Never had any issues with using the regular, the non-HD version. So that's what I'm going to install on all of mine. It doesn't take a lot of tools to do this kit. You're going to need a drill and a 1/8 inch drill bit. That's 1/8 inch drill bit. You need a screwdriver. Number 2 will work. You're going to need a Sharpie or a marking utensil of some sort just to mark your holes. And as anytime we install anything on a kayak, you're going to need some marine grade silicone sealant. This is a 3M brand that I really like. It's clear and it's number 08019. Works really well. It's been around for a long time. It's one of my favorite silicone sealants for kayaks. So if you come in here, we're going to kind of take what was in the bag, and it's going to come with an anchor line, and it's I believe 45 feet of anchor line, 35 feet, I can't remember. It's going to come with 2 stealth pulleys, one for the front, one for the rear. It's going to come with 4 long screws, and the 4 long screws is the hardware to attach your pulleys. It's going to come with your anchor lock and your anchor ring. And this actually comes in 3 pieces, but this actually comes in 3 pieces, but you can just put this together just like that. So it's really 2 pieces now. Then you have 6 shorter screws and 2 pad hooks. And these 6 short screws are going to install your 2 pad hooks and your anchor lock. Okay, so we're going to move to the front of the boat and we're going to get started. I'm going to grab a stealth pulley. I'm going to grab the silicone. I'm going to grab 2 screws, my marker, you know, all the stuff that we just kind of went over. My drill and a screwdriver. We don't need a tape measure for this, and this is why. I've kind of done this a few times, so I figured out where the best place to mount this is, particularly on a Crescent kayak. So I'm going to take this anchor, the pulley, and I'm going to take the front hole here, okay? I'm going to look at the front hole and I'm going to look at the very center of my handle. But before I do that, if you're going to look down the side of this boat, you're going to see kind of 3 lines. You're going to see the top of the deck here. You're going to see this line. You're going to see a line here. And then you're going to see the very bottom of the bow of the boat, right? So we want our anchor trolley to be on this part of the boat, not this part, okay, and surely not down here. All right, we don't want it up on the top part because that's not going to allow the anchor trolley to work like it needs to work. So we don't want it up here because it's just not quite enough of that ridge. It's a little rolly here. It's not flat, so it won't allow this to attach correctly. So we want to come on this part just before it goes underneath, and we're going to align our end hole, not our center hole, but our end hole of our pulley with the center of our handle, which Crescent actually has their logo embossed there. And we're just going to mark a hole right there in the center. Okay, make sure you get it there. Don't mark the center hole of your pulley quite yet, and we're going to show you why. So now I'm going to go ahead and very easily, nice and slow, drill that hole. I know it's always a scary thing to drill a hole in a brand new boat, or even if it's a used boat. If it's your boat, it's kind of scary to put a hole in, especially when it's plastic. However, the 1/8 inch drill bit is the perfect size for these screws, and to help ensure that, I'm just going to dab a little bit of silicone, and I'm sorry, I got a little bit of dried silicone on there. So I'm just going to take a little bit of silicone, and I'm just going to do a little bit on those threads, just like that. Okay, you don't need a whole lot. You don't need to put a ton of it on there, just a little bit on the threads. Okay, I'm going to take that pulley, I'm going to put my screw through that pulley, and I'm going to take my screwdriver and I'm just going to put that screw right in that hole, and you have to push a little bit. And as you can see, as you start to tighten that, you see that silicone is starting to go down the screw threads, and it's starting to build up right there where we need it. So you're going to leave that just a little loose, just a little bit, okay, so that we can get this moving just a touch. And this is why we don't want to tighten it completely yet. So before we tighten, and before we mark our second hole, you're going to look down this kayak, and there's going to be a natural flow to any boat. Any boat's going to have some type of natural curve to it, right? A little curvature to the boat. On the Crescent, you're just going to kind of look around, and you're going to kind of follow this line of that boat, right? And you're going to want this kind of like an arrow, like it's pointing right down that curvature. So you don't want it down too far like this. You don't want it too far up. You want it in that nice curvature, that nice flow of the boat. 1, it looks good, but 2, it's the most optimal position to get the best results out of this trolley system. So we're going to position that right in line with the nice flow of the boat, and it's right about there. So I'm just going to mark my hole best I can, and this time you can just go ahead and put your drill bit right through there if you want. Nice and easy. There you go. Again, put some silicone on these screws, and remember, these are the long screws that come with the kit, not the short ones. And we're just going to insert this right into that hole, and again, that silicone is going to start to seat as it screws in. There it goes. Maybe. Come on. There it goes. So that silicone, if you can get a nice come in tight, you can kind of see that silicone right in there just a little bit. So now that silicone is not only against the boat, it's in the screw, and it's traveling all the way down the length of that screw as I screw it in. So you're going to get just hand tight. You don't want to go super tight. You don't want to over torque this, okay? You're not trying to, if you try to crank on this too much, you're actually going to make it so it actually pulls the threads out. You're going to strip it. So when it stops, just stop. And then you need to come back to that front one, and you're just going to turn it until it stops. All right, this has to be hand tight. Okay, now we're going to go to the back or the stern of the boat, the aft, and do the exact same thing. So we're going to grab our pulley, our 2 screws, our tools that we need, and on the rear we're going to align this kind of the same way we did on the front as far as the line of the boat. We're going to look at the line of the boat, and we're going to put it on this flat part here. We're not going to put it up here where the emblem is. We're going to put it on this flat part. Okay, and the non-center hole, the rear hole, is going to go right in line with the front screw of the rear handle. And the reason we do that, we don't want it back here, is because if you strap your kayak down using these rear handles, these rear handle holds, that's going to get in your way and you're going to damage that. So we don't want you to damage anything on your boat, and we don't want you to damage the anchor trolley. And the anchor doesn't really need to go back that far. So we're going to line this hole with that front screw. And I forgot the marker. Hold on, I'll be right back. So I'm going to line this front screw. I'm going to go just below this line, about 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to make it straight as we can. We're just going to mark that hole, and there's our hole. Now we're going to take our drill, nice and slow and easy. You don't have to push real hard, and you don't have to have it going full speed the whole time. There we go. Take our screw, a little bit of this wonderful 3M sealant on there. There we go. Again, it doesn't take a whole lot. It just takes a little bit. All you're trying to do is keep the water out of there as much as you possibly can. And we're just going to stick it right through the mount. And we're going to start that screw. It takes a little bit of pressure. Doesn't take a whole lot. There it goes. And again, you can see that silicone working its way down the screw. So it's sealing that hole that we just made. And again, don't tighten it all the way, just leave it a little bit loose so we can angle that. And just like the front of the boat, we want to angle this with the natural flow or curvature of the kayak. So on the light tackle here, it's really kind of nice and easy that this line's right here, and you can take the arrow and point it straight down this way just a little bit. So I'm going to move that just a touch right there. Okay, so now just like the front, we're going to take our drill bit, and it's nice and easy. There we go. Take our last of the long screws, some silicone, a little bit of pressure to get it going. I think I may have moved it just a touch. I did. There we go. And again, that silicone will follow that screw all the way down and begin to seal itself and offer you some waterproofing. So you want to go just so it's hand tight. You don't want to go over torque this. And then come back to your other screw and tighten it. Again, just so it's hand tight. If you have a little extra silicone, you can wipe it off with your finger or a rag or something. So now what we're going to do is position our locking mechanism where we want this locking mechanism to be along the boat. And for me, I mean, you can position this wherever you want to on the boat. For me, I find that it works really, really well right underneath this handle because it's your seat is right here, and it's if you put your hand down when you're paddling or when you want to anchor, you just move your thumb, and that's a perfect position for this anchor lock locking mechanism. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that lever part of the lever lock straight up, and I want to center it on that logo or the center of the handle of the Crescent Kayaks Lite Tackle. And I don't want it sticking up. And the reason that is because if I put my hand in here and I'm picking up the boat and moving it around, I don't want to hit that anchor trolley, excuse me, the lever of the lever lock if it's up. So I'm just going to keep it straight up, and I'm just going to move it down till it just clears the side of the boat. And that's where I'm going to mark my holes. And you can mark one. Well, maybe. My marker doesn't seem to be marking it, so I'm going to do this a different way. There's one. There's one. So I can just continue to drill those holes. Again, still the 1/8 inch drill bit. I'm going to grab 2 of the short screws. Okay. Remember, all the long screws have been used. Now we're just down to short screws. And I'm going to dab a little bit of silicone on it, just like we did on the other screws. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to start it. But before I do, I'm going to put that anchor line right through the back of it. All right. And that anchor line has got to go underneath that lever lock. Okay. So as we saw earlier, when you lock that lever, right? So this allows that. Right now, that anchor line can move freely. When you move that lever lock, it's going to pinch that line, and now it can't move. So that's the part that you didn't see earlier, but that's how that works. But we just got to run that line right through there, and we're just going to start our screw, one screw at a time. And then we're going to put a dab of silicone on our second screw. Make sure your anchor line is still, oh, got a little grass on there. Make sure your anchor line is still through the back of that lever lock system. You're going to screw these. Again, you're not going to over tighten these, right? It's all about just enough torque to keep it taut. If you try too hard to tighten these, you're going to strip the screws, excuse me, strip the plastic out. Metal against plastic, metal will win every time, right? So you're going to tighten those until it's got a natural stopping point, and you can kind of feel if I go to till it stops, it's right there. If I try to go too much farther, I'm going to start to strip that plastic out. That's not what we want at all. So there is that installed. So I'm going to come to the front, and we're going to grab 2 of our short screws, or 2 of our remaining screws, because that's all that's remaining is short screws. Our drill, our silicone, our marker, and our screwdriver. So we got this pad hook, okay? And if you notice, it's got like a little finger there, and then it's got a little place for your line to go through. So what's going to happen, you don't want to put both lines through there, okay? You only want, excuse me, you only want one line. So if you look over here, it's the line that comes from the underside of the front, right? You see that, right? This line here comes from under the front pulley and goes through their pad hook here. So that's what we're going to install here. So we want to make sure that the one that comes from underneath, which is this one, is going to be through the middle of that. So that's what we want here. Now we want to figure out is where we want to put this pad hook so that it gets as much slack out of this as possible, and it keeps it down where we need it to when we're actually using the anchor and when we're not using the anchor. So I am going to align this pad hook with, if you will, the transom of the front, right, or the rear of the front hatch. This transom part, right, of the light tackle. Okay, and then I'm going to push this down so that little finger, if you will, it's just below this line. All right, I don't want it quite above it. I don't want it so far down. I just want it so that that finger is just over that line, which means my bottom hole is just above that line. Do you follow what I'm saying? Okay, so I'm going to hold that in line, and I'm just going to make one little dot there. It doesn't matter which dot you do. I'm going to make that little dot, and I'm going to let this go, and I'm going to drill my first hole. Again, just like drilling anything, nice and easy. There we go. Got silicone. Put your silicone on your screw. Tell you how hot it is out here. That silicone that I just had the cap on, we was only inside for about 10 minutes, dried up. That's how hot it is. It's pretty warm out here. So I'm going to start this screw, and then I'm going to put that line where it needs to go. So I'm going to start this screw first. So this way I don't have to have 3 different hands here. And again, I'm not going to tighten that. I'm just going to start it. Then remember, this line that comes from the bottom of the front is going to go in that pad eye, that pad hook, okay? So now I can hold this down, make sure that line is there. I want to make sure that this is straight. I don't want it crooked. I don't want it crooked to the back. I don't want it crooked to the front. I want it straight down as possible. So if you get it lined up as well as good as you can, you're just going to drill your hole, get you a little dab of silicone on there. Put your screw in. There we go. Maybe. Come on. There we go. Just did not want to start. Make sure that that does not pop up. So I can go ahead and tighten this top screw until it doesn't move. Remember, snug, not over torqued. And there we go. So that's got a little bit of movement in it. That's what we want. We don't want it pinched by anything. I'm going to tighten this one so it doesn't move. Make sure they're both tight. That one came a little bit loose. There we go. There we go. So now we're going to come to the rear, and we are going to do the same thing. So I'm going to move my tools to the back and all the stuff I need to the back. Pad eye, or excuse me, pad hook. And a couple screws. So now on the rear, we're going to try to split the difference between where my anchor lever lock is and the rear pulley that we installed. And it's actually, this is not centered on the boat because we put it center of the handle, so this is actually farther back. So the center of this is going to be not quite on this transom. That's a little too close to here, so I'm going to line it up with the, if you come back here just a moment, I'm going to line this pad eye up with the drain hole that comes off of this tank well. So this drain hole right here, that water can splash over the top, drain back in here and then down your scupper. I'm going to line that hole up, that pad hook in line with that drain. Okay, and again, just like we did on the front one, we're going to make sure that that little ear or that little finger or whatever you want to call it is just past that line, right? We don't want it too far down, we don't want it too far up, we want it right in there. Okay, just make sure it's lined up. We're just going to start our hole. Now you can mark it if you want to, but I've done this enough on the front one. I'm just going to go ahead and start that one and that one. Now get my silicone on one of my screws. And this time, if you look at this boat, right, again, the one that comes from the bottom is the one that's going to go through the pad eye, just like the front. Okay, this part of string comes out of the bottom of the pulley and then goes through that pad hook. So bottom of the pulley through the pad hook. So it's actually going to go kind of like that right there. Get that screw started, put that line, make sure that's the bottom one, right? That's the bottom one, right? There we go, and there we go. Okay, now we get our screw, some silicone. Probably used to hearing that by now. Screw, silicone, screw, silicone. Now, if you were wanting to install the HD system back here, there is no way to access the rear of the boat in the Lite Tackle. So you're going to have to figure out some way to get the same effects that a backing plate would, because you obviously cannot put a backing plate on someplace where you cannot access. So you can look at something like well nuts or something like that that's going to give you a little bit better biting power. But again, for me, I've used this regular lever lock anchor trolley for a long time. I've never had any issues. So now we have to run the trolley itself, the anchor line itself, rather, for the trolley. And so there's a lot of this. Maybe it's 35 feet. It's a long piece of string, if you will, a 550 cord. So rather than letting this whole thing fly, what we're going to do is just tie an overhand knot in one end of this. Very simple overhand knot. All right, just move it to the close to the end as you can. It doesn't have to be right at the end. Just a simple knot. Okay, and then nice and easy, we're going to untangle this so we get to the other loose end, or the other open end, if you will, that does not have a knot in it. And we're going to take our anchor ring and we're going to just put it right through here. Now, if you look at the anchor ring, there are two sides to this. There's a side that looks like it has a little key, if you can kind of see that key, and it's kind of indented on both sides. And the other side is not indented. Okay, so there's no indent. And this is made so your anchor line can kind of ride in there. So as it comes through, if you will, your anchor line can kind of sit in that little slot. So what we want to do is stick it, this is the front, this is the back. So put the front, and we're just going to run our anchor line through that hole. And we're just going to take it till our knot catches on that eye of that anchor ring. Just like that. Okay. Okay, so what I think I told you when I installed it, probably because I'm, sweating and very hot, I think I may have instructed you wrong on how to run this anchor trolley line. So what I'm going to do, and this is also if you have to replace it at some point. So you're going to tie your knot in here just like that, right, just on your anchor ring, and you're going to bring the loose end, right, all the way to the front. You're going to come from the top to the bottom, run that pulley, and that one's going to stay underneath on that little finger, if you will. And then your loose end is now going to come through the spacing, right, on your front pad eye, or pad hook, sorry. Right, just like this, okay? Now, you're going to come through your anchor trolley, okay? So, you can take a little pen or anything like that, try to run it through there. I'm going to use a small drill bit, and you can kind of feed it through there. Just make sure it's not in the locked position, because if it's in the locked position, obviously you're not going to be able to do that. So, you can just kind of feed it through by pushing it just like that, all the way there. But now if it's in that locked position, you can't move it, obviously. So make sure it's in the unlocked position. And I just dropped the anchor ring. Just give me 1 second here. There we go. Put that up there. So now you're going to run it through your lever lock. Okay. You're going to run it underneath. Oh, excuse me. No, I'm sorry. You're going to run it through the middle of here, right? Through the middle, right? You're going to run it through the middle on this one. Okay, just like that. All right, and now on the back side, you're going to come from the bottom to the top. Okay, so we're going to stick it from the bottom to the top, just like that. Oops, sorry. Okay, so now we're going to get underneath this pad eye, pad hook. So used to having pad eyes. Going to run it to the back side of your anchor hook. Make sure that this is underneath that pad hook. And make a little knot that we did earlier, right? Just enough to keep tension on it. Okay, so now if you look at the way that this flows, it's got a cross back here, right? And it crosses up here. So it has that infinity loop. Okay? What that's going to do is allow anywhere with this anchor ring starts to pull down. If you look up here, right, as this starts to pull down, it's pulling on the top part of the pulley and not the bottom. That's going to give you best support, and also when you have weight hanging on here, it's going to give you the best leverage to pull it back, so you're not fighting the entire weight. That pulley is actually going to support some of that weight for you, and same thing on the back. It's the exact same way. So right now, as you can see, there's a lot of slack. It's just hanging there, okay? We don't want that much slack. So what we want to do, and I just kind of looped this through there for a second. We want to pull that slack out, and we just want to hold it with our hands, hold it with our finger, and just kind of push down on that rope, right? It's still moving just a little bit too much. So, a little bit more. There we go. Now keep in mind that when this gets wet, it's going to get a little more stretchy, okay? So anything that's going to get saturated with water is of course going to have a little more elasticity to it. So keep in mind that you want it tight, but you don't want it so tight that you can't move it. You still want to be able, like if I just hold my pressure here, I can still move this with relative ease. But if you try to go a little too tight, a little more tight than what it is, you want just a little bit of slack. So when you push down and let it go, it pops right back to its original position. Okay, so when you find that, you're going to make a series of overhand knots, right? You're going to make this. Right there, okay? And again, on the knot on top of itself. And I do 3 of them. You can do as many as you want. It's a nice idea you can probably put 5, 6, 7 of these. And the reason for that is as this rope starts to age and things like that, or if you have a small cut or something, you can take a little bit of that out, and you'll have a couple inches to work with. So I'm just going to stop there. That's enough, I think. So now you've got it where you need it. I'm going to cinch that down, and I'm going to make sure that everything works. So it's in the unlocked position, and I'm not going to step on my rope here. So I'm going to make sure that it goes to the front, right? And actually with the weight of the anchor, it's going to be hanging down a little bit, okay? And then it's going to go to the back, just like that, okay? And it's going to come back to the front, and wherever it is, I'm going to make sure that it locks and does not move. Okay, so there is the install of the anchor lock trolley. I've got a torch here to cut this, or excuse me, to burn this after I cut it, but I don't think I have anything to cut it with. So just enjoy the knot for a second and I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. So I've got something to cut the string with, and I just want to cut this line just a little ways away from there. I don't want to go too close to it because with a bungee cord you have to get it hot, and I don't want to go too close. So just about an inch or so off. I'm just going to cut that like that. Take your torch, and you're just going to heat up just the end of that so that it starts to melt on itself a little bit, and it doesn't allow it to coil back in and become unraveled. So now you've got a pretty good amount. If you want to use your 550 cord or the remaining anchor trolley, whatever you want to call it, for tie downs or whatever you're going to use it for, it gives you a nice amount here. You can also just put it in the boat. It's a nice thing to have if you go camping or anything like that to stow some equipment with. So there you have it. That is the YakAttack lever lock anchor trolley system mounted on a Crescent Kayaks Lite Tackle. I am Donald Dem with Floating Feathers Kayak Fly Fishing School. It is 90-something degrees, super humid. I'm very hot, so I apologize for any mistakes. Please, for any information on YakAttack, Crescent Kayaks, or Floating Feathers Kayak Fly Fishing School, see the links below. And if you have any questions or comments, please let us know and click that button to subscribe. Thank you.